In this video, I'm going to talk about the filter operator with RxJava. So I think you're going to get a lot of use out of this operator. I think it's really awesome. Like this solves a problem or something that was very inefficient, I guess, in general, and now it's very efficient and it works really well. So you can filter things like lists of custom objects and search for fields in those objects. So like if I was, I'll just bring up Android Studio. So if I had, a task object class, ignore all these classes. We don't need all those for this example if you're just coming in here. So suppose you had an object class like this, a task object class, and you had a list of tasks. So I'm going to open up the data source class here. You had a list of tasks like I have here. So I just have a bunch of tasks added to a list. And they have different descriptions, whether they're complete or not, and then different priorities. So suppose you wanted to search this list of tasks for a certain task, like walking the dog. So if I wanted to do that with Android before, I could use the collections class. So the static, the collection is collections or collection, one of those classes, I think collections, and you could filter through the list, and it would do that for you. So that would work, and but it's also, I think the notation is very confusing personally, for one thing, if you do it that way. But for another thing is there's no way to just kind of, if you have a really, really big list that you got to sort through, there's no way to do that work on a background thread by default. You'd have to use an async task or fire up a thread, use an executor, whatever. You'd have to do something and it would take a lot of code. But now with Rx, you can do it very, very easily. So that's what I'm going to show you in this video. So we're going to filter a list of custom objects, the task objects that I just showed you. We're going to search for a string field and print out that task. So I'm going to copy this and go back to Android Studio, paste that in. So I'm creating an observable of task type called task observable using the from iterable operator. Which you should be familiar with. I have a lecture on that. If you go to my course, you can see that the from iterable operator was covered in that lecture right there. And yeah, so there's a from iterable operator. We're creating a list of tasks from the data source class, passing it to the from iterable, and then I'm applying a filter. So I'll just write this out again for you, just so you can kind of see me. When you apply a filter, you want to go new predicate. Just a new predicate, let the autocomplete complete that for you. And then inside here, inside the test method, is where you can perform a test for each object inside of the iterable or the single object, whatever. Like I didn't have to use from iterable here. I could have used from array. I could have used just and specified a single object. It doesn't matter. The thing to understand here is that you're applying a filter to whatever objects you're emitting, and you can test those objects and choose to either emit them to the observers or not to. So in this case, I want to look for a specific task. So I want to look for walk the dog. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to go, so if my task dot get description dot equals walk the dog, then I want to return true, because then it passes the test. Otherwise, I want to return false. So I could simplify this. I could just do return task get description equals walk the dog. If that is true, then the task will get emitted to the observers. So I'm going to go task observable. Why isn't it task observable? Am I missing some code here? What's going on? Oh, there's no onCreate method. Whoops, I forgot to insert the onCreate method. Oh, some of you were probably very confused. So insert the onCreate method. This is going inside the onCreate method. We should probably set the content view too, even though it doesn't matter. r.layout.activity main. Okay, now we're ready to continue. So task observable, I want to subscribe, new observer, and now only the tasks that match that filter will be emitted. So task, I'll just write task.get description. So now if I add a semicolon here and I run this and we look at the log, the only task that I should see is the one that matches that description. So there it's running, and there we have the emission right there. So walk the dog. So the filter is working. So that's a really cool thing. Like I think a lot of people who will be watching this video for the first time and never had to use the old way of using collections won't appreciate this for what it is, because it's really awesome. And on top of that, I can subscribe on a background thread so that all the filtering is done on a background thread, which is another really great thing. Because if you have a, I'm just going to print out the thread so you can see that it's being done on a background thread. Because before there was no way to like easily do that. You'd have to use an async task or an executor or use a thread. So there you can see it's printing out a background thread that's performing the check. So it's not going to slow down your UI if you're going through a bunch of tasks, like a massive list, and you're filtering them. So it's a really cool operator. So now next, let's go back to the lecture. So I'm going to show you another example. Actually, I'm not even going to show you it because it's the same thing. So in the example 2 in the lecture here, it's filtering the exact same thing, but it's looking for a Boolean. So everything is identical. You have the from iterable passing that list of tasks, filter, but instead of filtering on the description, I'm filtering if the task is complete, then emit the object. So same sort of thing. You can go through it here if you want. You can see that it prints take out the trash. So take out the trash is true. It prints make my bed is true, and make dinner is true. So it's filtering on the tasks that are already completed. So that's going to be it for this video. I'm sure it's going to be a very useful one to you. I'm sure you'll find a lot of use for the filter operator. And the next operator that we're going to look at is the distinct operator.